This is GeorgeF551, and we're doing a review of the new Flip Ultra HD camcorder, which came out only 3 days ago on the 21st of September 2010. And we're comparing it with the original Ultra HD camcorder. Now, the one very big thing that got me to purchase this is that it has image stabilization, which this Slide HD, which I'm using now, and the original Ultra does not have. Okay, first thing I'm going to do is look at overall build, because that was the first thing I noticed when I opened both of these up back in their respective times. The first thing I noticed is the original Ultra HD is fatter than the new version, and the camera lens sticks out further. However, one thing I do notice is the pros of having the wider stance is that it's a little more comfortable to hold. It fits perfectly in your hand. Well, this one, it's not quite as comfortable, but yeah, it still can hold it fairly well. And another thing we've noticed is construction. They use solid metal here. Use brushed steel or whatever it is. It's very solid. It's beefy. It's very well built. I mean, just listen. That sounds like super solid construction right there. This, on the other hand, the new version, it's very light, which, I mean, has that going for it. Unfortunately, it's all cheap plastic, and you can just hear that the build quality is nowhere near as good as the original Ultra HD was. In fact, you can see that the reflection off the original Ultra. Okay, one thing we notice here is no HDMI port over here, like there is over here. On the other hand, they have the flip port and HDMI on the bottom, as well as the battery lock. It's different. On the original, you had a switch that went left to right. This one, you have a tiny switch. It might not be picking up too well. Up and down, and it has the tripod mount on the opposite end. Let's unlock these, because the battery source is different. When we open the Ultra, the original, it is a AA battery pack, and you could use AA batteries if need be. On the other hand, when we open this, it is a AAA battery pack, which, if the handle would cooperate, there we go, you might see that it tells you that you can insert 3 AAAs. Battery insertion is fairly easy. Putting the cover on and off is easy. Although this switch seems to be rather cheesy in comparison to the original, it's a lot easier to lock this cover on versus this one. The bulkiness of this switch kind of actually works against the original. Also, you may notice that the lenses appear differently. Different lens set. Since it's not as bulky a camera, it's more towards the front. They both have a microphone, obviously, and they do have a red light here and here respectively. I have them disabled on mine. However, when you're charging, if you have it disabled, it will not show here. It will stay lit here when you're charging. And when it turns off, you know the battery's charged. Like I say, this doesn't feel anywhere near as well. On the other hand, these buttons feel more like a touch button than they do a mechanical versus these. These you have significantly more travel to get a reaction versus this. They're very short travel distance, very responsive. So the new one wins in that round. You might have noticed I've left some stuff out on the table. This is going to be a demonstration of how well each one does in the light and in the dark. Because I've noticed that the new Ultra doesn't seem to do as well in the dark. However, like I said, this has image stabilization, and it does 59.94 frames per second versus 29.97 on the original Ultra. So when you're playing it on a TV or on a computer with a fast enough video card, the videos on these appear perfectly smooth. Not so on these, because that's just an older format. The one thing the cheap plastic has going for it is it is not as much of a sound deadener as the steel. In other words, incoming sound that you're trying to record can travel through the plastic, which actually results in a significantly louder and clearer audio signal. So there is a little upside to the cheapness on this construction. And of course, you can tell that this one is made by Cisco versus this one, which was not. Okay, now we're going to power them up. The power button on my old one's kind of beat up. There we go. And there we go. This is what it appears in normal light. Now keep in mind there is a slight angle offset because they're both side by side. This is what the text looks like on this document. You will not be able to read it. And now for the image stabilized one. Granted, you can see it's a lot more steady. We're going to look at this Samsung TV. First, we're looking at it with the original Ultra. And now we're looking at it through the new Ultra with the image stabilization. Now this doesn't seem like much of a test, but when we shut off the lights, you'll see it. Here's a whiteboard in which I never got rid of the shadow image of the unboxing of the M Pro 120 I did a while ago. And now this is what it looks like on the one with the image stabilization. Note that I'm holding two cameras, so it's hurting my hands and it's going to shake a little bit. We're going to look at this hallway. It is a sky blue in color. Notice how on this Ultra HD, okay, now I'm going to hold them both with both hands. Notice on the Ultra HD, it appears a little on the greenish side, while the new Ultra with the image stabilization appears correctly. Now we're going to start doing some light and dark tests. Here's where the original wins out. There's your Apple Jacks and Nature Valley. And on the new Ultra, as you can see, it's kind of dark and some of the details are kind of muddy. That's the cost of a little extra video compression to get almost 30 more frames per second in the same amount of space. And now, this document. Notice how you can still kind of see the words and everything on the old Ultra. And everything appears muddy on the new Ultra. It's just not as good in the dark. And finally, my kitchen floor, which is was not in the best of shape when I moved in here to begin with. As you can see the details on my old camera versus it appears a bit muddy on the new camera. So the new camera is not as good in the light, but when it comes to color reproduction and image stabilization, it does win out. And that will conclude this video test. So there you have it at the end. Although the new Ultra is much more accurate in color reproduction and has a higher frame rate to produce smooth video, which, by the way, on YouTube you will not notice. They dumb everything down to 30 frames per second regardless. You have issues when it comes to getting darker. Things start to appear muddy as the extra video compression used to give you the extra frame rate while maintaining the same video size and resolution costs you a little bit. However, if you're in a decently lit area, and I'm not talking bright, I mean if you're halfway decent lit and up, you're fine. Same thing with the old one. The old one was better in the dark. So overall, I definitely would recommend purchasing this if you have an older flip cam and you want to have image stabilization. If you want more accurate color reproduction, I'd go and get this too. The new Ultra HD from Flip. Sure, the build quality is significantly less than the original, more sturdy Ultra HD, but your video quality, definitely your sound quality, is much better on the new one. And of course, the smoother frame rate, which helps. This is George F551 saying, I hope you enjoyed the review.